Everyone knows recycling is pretty easy.
So I throw the bottle into the blue bin.
To a blue bin.
In the recycling bin.
They throw it into some kind of truck.
All sorted, nice and neat.
It goes to a separate place.
To a plastic recycling plant.
To a factory.
Something akin to the end of Toy Story 3 where they're all heading to this big incinerator.
And then I imagine that there's some large machine that just squishes everything together.
Everything then is melted down.
It's somehow melted.
Maybe they melt down the plastic or some
From there, it can be reshaped into sheets of plastic.
Like a park bench.
You hear about sneakers being turned into basketball court.
That turns into new things.
Recycling.
Turns out, that's not the whole truth, especially for plastic. This is actually propaganda we've been spoon-fed since we were kids in commercial after commercial.
People start pollution. People can stop it.
Who's behind a lot of this messaging? The industry that produces plastic and the retailers who sell it to us. And it makes perfect sense that they'd want to trick us into thinking we can use as much plastic as we want, so long as we recycle. Why not pass the responsibility for a big corporate mess onto individuals like you and me? But here's the big secret. Entire categories of papers and plastics are rarely recycled. Of 7 types of plastic that people put into blue bins, 5 whole categories hardly ever get recycled at all. According to the EPA, in 2017, as little as 8.4% of our discarded plastic went through that magic recycling process. What happened to the rest? You probably guessed it. Minus the plastic that ends up in the ocean. To make it worse, we used to export 1/3 of our recycling, a whopping 20 million tons a year, and pay countries like China to deal with it for us. That game's over. China's basically told us no more, followed by the Philippines and Malaysia. This recycling shutout has caused hundreds of American municipalities to cut down or totally cancel their recycling programs. In Eugene, Oregon,
We can't even recycle our milk cartons or our yogurt containers anymore.
You might be thinking, if so little is actually getting recycled, why does everything we buy seem to have that symbol on it? Great question. Let's ask the FTC. That's the entity set up to protect American consumers like you and me by setting rules on consumer labeling. But their guidelines around recycling are a bit confusing. Basically, to earn this symbol, 60% of the people who buy that product should be able to recycle it, which seems to mean 60% of buyers of that product would live in a place that can break down and reuse that thing. But then it gets more complicated. Like if a shower curtain package says recyclable, but either the curtain or the package isn't recyclable, then that's considered deceptive. But if it's a bottle instead of a curtain and it's the cap instead of the package that's not recyclable, then it's totally fine unless the bottle has a non-recyclable wrapping or is contaminated with food. Is anyone else totally lost here? With such complicated regulations, companies can get away with stamping a recyclable label on products that aren't likely to be recycled. Like this, or even this, and most of us wouldn't even know. But somehow Kathleen Smith figured it out. Kathleen is a resident of Northern California. She loves coffee, so much so that her grandkids call her Grandma Coffee. And she loves being eco-friendly, so someone gifted her a Keurig machine. The pods had that nice little recycling symbol, and the box even said, "Have your cup and recycle it too." But those pods weren't actually recyclable. She took Keurig to court to sue them for false advertising. Keurig changed some of its labels, but then they tried to dismiss the case, essentially claiming what had happened hadn't hurt Kathleen. But the court disagreed. Kathleen could have been hurt if she was misled and paying more for something she thought was recyclable. And now a whole bunch of other Kathleens are lining up in a potential class action suit against Keurig. This lawsuit might eventually cause one company to clean up its act. But short of millions of crusading Kathleens in court cases, how are we going to clean up the entire plastic-pushing industry? What we really need is the FTC to write some clear regulations and introduce costly penalties. And we need companies to stop hiding behind their green marketing ploys and actually deal with the plastic crisis they created. Now you may be thinking, so should I not even bother recycling anymore? The point of this video is not to take all the responsibility off of individuals like you and me. Please keep recycling stuff that's recyclable. But we've been made to feel that as long as we put our plastic in the blue bin, we've done our part, and that's just not true. The best thing we can really do is start buying as if nothing gets recycled. Because that's pretty much what's going on.
It's ridiculous that we had to pull this out of the trash can for this video.